Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jennifer Scheich. I'm with Farm Journal's Pork, and I'm excited to introduce you to our speaker this morning, Grace V. That's what I'm going to call her, but Grace Vehige. Okay, good, awesome. She is here today to talk to us about 10 tips to produce effective videos. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear Grace today because yes, she's an instructor of ag communications and leadership at the University of Arkansas, but I think what she also brings to us is a really great perspective from an industry experience standpoint. She's got policy, business management, producer education, beef industry sustainability, and strategic communications experience that she's going to be able to share with us in a very hands-on way to help us as we seek to create content in different venues, and in this case, videos. Grace?
Okay, I can't decide if I'm gonna pace with this or what I'm doing with the microphone situation yet, so bear with me. But good morning, everyone. I'm Grace Vehige, like she said, an instructor at the University of Arkansas, but I wear a couple different hats. I'll talk on that in just a second. This morning we're gonna talk about 10 tips for producing effective videos. I wanted to start, this is actually how I open up all of my class lectures at the beginning of the semester, and I wanted to share these pictures with you now as well, because don't you like to know who you're actually hearing from and kind of what makes them not only credible, but kind of got them to where they are now, right? So this is who I am, I like to say, not on paper, in my everyday. So I grew up on a registered cattle operation. I love being outside with my dog, with my family, with friends. And then over here in this bottom corner is actually the very first experiential learning field-based course that the AgCom program at University of Arkansas did last summer with Dr. Kennedy. Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. And I share that and these pictures with the foundation of I'm very passionate about experiential learning and also learning hands-on. And so I think that is kind of the foundation of what we're going to talk through today in terms of just getting up and trying and learning outside of your comfort zone, right? So this is how I would describe myself on paper, right? You're at a video session, and I'm not a videographer. I would like to disclose that at the beginning. Instructor, consultant, storyteller, not videographer. But the reason that I'm here today, and hopefully you'll get a few things from this, but the session that we're going to be talking through is about, okay, maybe you're a communications professional, maybe you're a small team or a one-man or one-woman show, right? And all of a sudden you get told, hey, we really think that people need to engage with more video content. Good luck, run with it, right? What are you supposed to do with that? If you're unfamiliar with a camera, maybe you're not quite familiar with social media, but you need to make the magic happen, right? So that's what we're gonna cover today, and I will share that I'm probably taking a somewhat untraditional approach to this. We're not gonna be covering any technical filmmaking concepts. We're probably not going to talk about technology or equipment at all. I took the producing effective videos very literally, and so we're going to talk through things to make and produce the content itself, right? Not actually editing and capturing. So what we're going to talk through today is storytelling, right? Audience, purpose, and practical content creation. I will say it will not hurt my feelings if you're interested in technology tips. They're doing a really great session next door. If that's where you need to be, it's totally cool. Okay, so first things first, I want to share, I grew up playing competitive softball, and my dad was my coach, and he never would let me, when we're practicing with a tee and the net in our yard, right, he never let me finish my swing fully because I had to work on the fundamentals, right, the foundation, and make sure that what I was doing was proper and according to technique. And so that's how I wanted to start, is with the fundamentals of our video production. And that begins with knowing who we are as a communicator and as a storyteller. And these concepts actually came out of a book that I use in class for a textbook, but also came from Dr. Kennedy. But I use to kind of guide who we are as storytellers, right? We're human, we're informers, we're involvers, we're visionaries, and we're knowledgeable, right? When I talk about video production and storytelling in class, we talk about story caretakers, right? You, as the communications professional, are in charge of the narrative that you're sharing with your audience, right? And we're going to get at who that is in just a second here. But you are trusted behind the camera, right? Behind the social media content. Your audience, your viewers are trusting you with the story that your organization or your business or the product that you're selling, right? You're in charge of that narrative. And so you have to be able to identify what your audience is looking for and what you need to curate. So I share this quote: you can learn new things at any time in your life if you're willing to be a beginner. So again, the session is really focused on not honing in skills. It's about learning where to begin and how to get started when you need to add this to your plate, right? Maybe you're not the most comfortable with social media or content production, but hopefully we're going to cover a few things to help you get started. So as we go through these tips, I would like you to kind of just approach it, seems very practically, right, from the role of your business or your organization. So maybe you are the one-man or one-woman show, right, and you are actually going to be capturing the content, right? Or maybe you have the budget and the ability to hire a videographer or a social media content specialist to help generate the content, and you truly are that production piece, right? You're in charge of curating and planning, right? So no matter what your role might be, hopefully these tips kind of plug into that missing piece of the puzzle for you. I also want to share the tips that I'm talking through today are not only a blend of what I find successful, but I did ask some of my good friends who are actually videographers some of their tips to share with you as well. So in full disclosure, while I have created social media content for businesses before, and I've done video for my family's cattle operation, we also hire someone to generate content with us. And in previous roles, I worked with production teams to shoot video and to get, more long-form content as well. And so actually getting good content all starts in kind of those planning phases. So the first tip that I want to talk through is actually about your audience. Any single class that a student takes with me, they probably get tired of me saying the word audience analysis. It is the most fundamental and important piece of the puzzle that we overlook so often, right? We get very used to just posting content because we think we need to, right? When sometimes we're missing the mark, right? Who are we truly trying to reach? In industry, you might call this audience analysis, consumer insights, maybe buyer personas. But I would challenge you to actually sit down and consider, okay, here's my organization's mission, here's our vision for where we want to take this content, and whether you're just trying to do organizational awareness or you actually have a campaign you're trying to execute, understanding who you're actually trying to reach, and not just saying, I work for a cattle breed association, so our producers are obviously our audience, right? Understand them. Where are they going to look for content at? What social media outlets are they using? How do they truly want to engage with media? Do we think that it's more audio-based? Do we think it's more visual? What times of day are they posting or sharing or interacting? And what type of content do they truly want to look for? People engage with content for a variety of reasons, right? Whether they want to learn something or they're looking for information or They're wanting to kind of have that nostalgic, emotional pull, or they're looking for connection, right? Community. What piece of the puzzle, where does your audience kind of fit into that? And understanding that helps you immensely right off the bat, right? The second tip couples very nicely with audience, and that is purpose. You need to know why you're posting that content, right? And when you know the why, the how you're producing comes much easier, right? So truly understanding that you need to have a clear objective, and again, couples very nicely with the audience piece, because if you know who you're talking to and you know what it is you want to share with them, you can identify the best method of doing that, right? You might be taking an entertainment approach or an informational approach, or maybe you know that you need to work with a spokesperson to kind of help your audience connect more with your content, right? Understanding who and what you're trying to share is your equation. This, if you take nothing else from today, please take this beautiful equation with you on your way out the door. It's the same thing I preach in class, and if students walk away with this concept, then I did my job, right? Audience and purpose is your story's success. And again, maybe these aren't the tips that you thought that I'd be sharing today, but they are so often what I think we as communications professionals miss the mark on, right? When we're just trying to create content because we think we need to, and we're not being purposeful with it, right? Make your content count. So 3 is kind of a twofer. Plan like a storyteller, but prepare like a producer. So again, we're really honing in on the actual production process of creating these videos, right? Great videos don't start with a camera, they start with a plan. In my video production class, I think we truly spend more time on understanding shot lists and scoping out location and understanding how to build connections with people we want to interview than they do actually capturing content, because I believe that there's power in preparation. When we're talking about the planning phases, I don't just mean audience and purpose, right? Think about not just what you need to prepare to gather your content. Think about what you need during your content actually being produced, right? And also after you have it, not just in the editing phases, but in sharing that on social media, right? I go to so many conferences, and maybe you do interviews outside. I've been guilty of this as well, right? You gather content because you think you need it, and then there's no execution on the back end, right? When are you going to post it? What captions are you going to use with it? When is it actually timely to fit with your audience's needs, right? Think about that before you even jump into it. And don't get me wrong, I know there are times where you don't get much notice for the planning phases, right? You're somewhere and your boss says, well, I need you here this afternoon, right? And you don't get to have that execution phase. That doesn't mean you can't do some planning on the back end as well, but if you have the ability to start that planning early, please do so. It will help you in the long run, I promise. I also want to say, when we're talking about preparing like a producer, this is where you're thinking equipment, right? Do you have your memory cards? Are your batteries charged? Have you scoped out the weather where you're supposed to be shooting, right? Whether it's short form, long form, anything like that. Do you have backup plans and proper contacts with the people you're working with, right? All of those planning phases from the beginning, preparing like a producer. And then I think it's really important to establish comfort. Let interviews, if you're choosing to do interview content, feel like a conversation. I think it's honestly better to be transparent with who you're working with, right? Tell them, hey, I'm nervous to be on camera too, right? Establish some rapport with them. If you're doing a full day shoot, let's say you get the opportunity to go visit maybe a producer on site, right? And you're spending the day with them. Start building that connection months, weeks in advance, right? Find common ground, find connection with them, and start building a relationship early. That way, when you get on site, you kind of have easy conversation flow, and when you put them, in front of the camera, you truly can kind of have the ability to just have a conversation with them, right? If you don't have the ability to kind of build that connection so far in advance, let's say you're on site and you just kind of pluck somebody out of a conference room to give you a sound bite, right? Take a few minutes, whether or not you think you have the time or not, to find common ground with them, right? Have the conversation, find a connection point. Again, establish that comfort. It helps them give more authentic, nice answers, right? Nice responses to the questions that you're asking. I think oftentimes, too, we get, especially if you're being interviewed, right? You like to know the questions that you're going to be asked. I say share them to a point, right? I like to be prepared, too, but I am the first person. If you send me a full question list of things you're going to ask me, like if I'm on a podcast, I'm going to type out word for word what I think that I want to say, right? I typed out what I thought I wanted to say for this too. But, you want non-rehearsed answers, right? You want authentic content. So give them bullet points of things you want to share, and then use your interview style to kind of guide the conversation in that way, right? When I was working with the Environmental Stewardship Award Program, we would go on site, visit with farmers and ranchers about their operations and their conservation programs. And one of the questions we always asked, very simply, was just, what does sustainability mean to you, right? And I used that as the example of when you're talking with them, you put them in front of the camera, farmers, producers, they're naturally uncomfortable right away, right? Even if you have that good relationship with them. Giving them the language that you want them to use back in the response, one, makes your editing easier, but it also automatically kind of sets them up for success in the fact that they've got a train of thought already going for them, right? So that's all I'll say on that. But again, keep things comfortable and conversational. Rule 5, focus on short-form content, which is the whole purpose of this, right? We're looking at short-form content. That's what you were asked to create. That's what we want to do. But I really want to stress on why that's important. I threw the little goldfish up there as my reminder, too. I think now research shows that the average attention span is less than 8 seconds, which is not great for us as a human species. However, we can't help it, right? We're just the product of our environment. And we are used to instant gratification, content at our fingertips right away, right? Research also shows, I don't cite my sources in this, but if you want them, I'd be happy to send you the studies. But research also shows that content under 60 seconds has 2 to 3 times more engagement than anything over that, or content around the 3-minute mark. So we're looking for accessible, digestible content, quick, clear messages, right? And that performs better than anything like a 3-minute masterpiece. Now, don't get me wrong, those long-form videos, even 3 minutes, I'll consider long-form for this, have their purpose, right? But if we're just trying to interact with our audience quickly and get them to consume the content that we want to share, we need bite-sized pieces, right? So an example I'll share for this, because it's county fair season, right? Think if you are unrolling a list of new rule book changes, right? Rather than maybe sitting down with the president of the board and explaining all 5 rule book changes at once, maybe you use a youth member and you share one at a time. And you share that content over the course of a few weeks or months leading up to the county fair itself, right? And you find quick ways to share that message using someone that they identify with, that they want to engage with, and in a really short snip, right? And you can direct them to where they can find more information or people to talk to, right? You're going to watch that 30-second video about a rule change, maybe get really angry about what they did, and then you're going to go contact somebody, right? But you're going to watch that before you sit down for 3 to 5 minutes to listen to XYZ, right? Focus on accessible and digestible. Number 6 is all about being intentional. And this very clearly goes back into audience and purpose, I think. Intentional videos are shaped by clear decisions. I think truly just intentionality, it's part of that planning process. It's part of that preparation and understanding audience and purpose, as I said. But looking into what it is that you actually would want to get out of your content, right? So what I mean by that is don't just stick someone outside of the conference room backdrop because you think, well, that's where we are, it's accessible to me, right? Take the time to scope out a good location, right? Take the time to organize ahead of time. And so I guess I'm trying to think of an example I could share with you. Like if we were highlighting Ag Media Summit speakers, right? Would you rather see me speaking against a blank wall, right? Or telling you about my session outside of a conference room? Or would you rather see me in my element, right? Would you rather see me on the farm, hanging out with the cows and my dog, right? Being intentional with the content that you're producing is really important. And I think that also goes for any spokespeople that you use as well. So who are you putting in your videos? Who are you interviewing? Again, intentional from the start. Help you support that story. 7, and this is one of the tips I actually gathered from Sweetbriar Creative, whose primary business is video, right? Clarity beats creativity at first. So again, when we're talking about engaging with people in bite-sized content, right, short-form video, right away, think about how you're scrolling on your phone, right? You don't really have a lot of control over what captures your attention, but something usually does, right? So you sit and you watch, and then you decide to keep scrolling, or you just continuously go, right? So yes, fun transitions and crazy music and unique shots all contribute to quality video, but we need clarity first, right? Again, we're all working for agricultural organizations, right? Or I guess most of us. But, so we have a specific message that we're trying to share. Obviously, we want to share that first and foremost. I think I've seen some organizations have had a little more fun with their content creation and capturing attention. If that is the persona and the brand kind of reputation that you want to have, and that works for you, that's great, right? But make sure you're staying true to your brand's voice while also keeping that message clear from the get-go, and then add in that creativity with time, right? Because that kind of teed up my number 8 here, emotion outperforms perfection. I want to share this, one, because if you're not quite familiar with video, short form, social media, any of the things, right? It's easy to feel imposter syndrome. I felt it just trying to prepare this presentation. That's why I shared from the get-go that I'm not a videographer, right? But people remember how your video makes them feel, not how polished it was. The first thing that I think of is like, you know, those soldier homecoming videos that like make you cry, or like someone's reunited with their dog, and it's just a cell phone video, right? But you tear up, at least I do, and it makes you feel something. You feel connected to it, right? You remembered the feeling of that, not the fact that it was shot on someone's Samsung, right? Think about how you're wanting to connect with your audience and that message, right? Think feeling. And if you are, again, not confident in your video capabilities, that's okay. If you have good quality content that makes people feel connected to you and to your organization, you're already doing better than most, right? People are going to connect with that. And then also, the more you practice, the more that perfect video form, the more your technique develops over time. Number 9, we have heart over hardware. I think we're getting cheesier as we go into my 10 tips here. But again, this kind of goes with that whole imposter syndrome thing, right? Or maybe budgets. Let's be very honest. We work in agriculture, right? Sometimes we have very limited budgets, so we don't get all of the best equipment ready at our fingertips, right? Purposeful messages, authentic tones, intentional use of your visuals are what's going to set your content apart and set you up for success, right? With time, you can make investments into that technology, into that equipment. But if you don't have that from the beginning, that's okay. If you're focusing on understanding your audience, understanding your purpose, connection, producing intentional content, helping truly connect with your membership, your producers, right? Your consumer base, you're going to have effective videos. You're going to be successful in your storytelling. And so, with that, we get to number 10, be a lifelong learner. So whether you're learning to frame your shot or edit on your phone, which I will say is a very effective use. If you do not have the funds to invest in camera equipment, new iPhone technology cameras, I don't know about the other brands, is really quite honestly like good quality. They have like cinematic mode. You can adjust to 4K. It's really crazy. I'm happy to show you how to do that after if you want. I think you probably would have learned that next door. So if you want a little bonus at the end, I'd be happy to show you how to switch your camera mode over to that. But what I really want to share is that whether that's learning how to edit on your phone, producing reels, diving into the world of analytics, right? There's always room to grow. And luckily, there's a lot of opportunity for that too. I wanted to throw this back up. There's a few more things I have to share. But again, we're starting kind of from that very beginning phase of video production. These weren't technical tips, but they were what I think are what we so often miss in our communication strategies and in our content development. If you're unfamiliar, just start, right? Ask for help. And frankly, how awesome is it that we work in the ag industry, and when we're talking about building connection with people, we have like the most emotional, nostalgic, heartfelt stories ever to share, right? We're like a content gold mine. You just have to get out and start making the magic happen, right? And so with this, my recommendations, first and foremost is that book I told you about. It's a lot longer of a title than just Storytellers, and it's actually a photography book, but the first half of it pretty much is based on understanding who you are as a storyteller, how to start training your eye to look for content in your natural environment, right? Understanding how to develop themes to be purposeful with your messaging, right? I don't know how much it is, but maybe like $20 on Amazon, like I said, I don't know. But it's worth your investment, I think, if you're really wanting to start at that foundation and develop who you are as a storyteller. The second kind of goes with my lifelong learning. I think that there's a lot of power in understanding the analytics of the content that you're trying to produce, right? To actually be an effective video producer, know what is going to be engaged with well, understand the analytics and the performance of the content so that you can adjust, right? Understand what you need to do better. I shared that we hire someone to do video for like our bull sale marketing, for instance, but I post the content on social media. And so every year that we work with, Alyssa and Sweetbriar Creative, I can go back and say, okay, I was reviewing posts from like the last sale season, and it looks like this is content that our customers like. They like videos less of the actual animals we're selling, right? And more of my brothers being goons. And that's what works. So we spend more time putting them on camera than producing bull sale content, right? But that's how we get people to share our message and our story. So spending time investing in analytics, learning, I think LinkedIn Learning has really great resources in terms of that as a whole, but then also Adobe courses and has lots of options for you. So if you're not sure where to start, or if you would like links to any of the recommended courses that I have students do, I have my email in a second, and you can take a look there. And then lastly, look for inspiration in your everyday. I think when we're creating content, especially in ag, we think that we should maybe we're all trying to be different, right? Or we're looking for creativity and inspiration within our little bubble, right? Look for it in non-ag companies. As you're scrolling Pinterest, take a walk and enjoy nature, right? Talk to someone. Pick up the phone and call a mentor or a friend and just have a conversation and really engage with people, your environment, to get the inspiration for your work. And I promise the creativity and the content will flow from that. Okay, that was my last spiel. Hopefully you had something to take away. Audience and purpose, my last 2 points. Happy to answer any questions if you have them. Yes.
In terms of following trends with making videos, where do you draw the line when it comes to the agricultural industry? Obviously, we want to follow trends, we want to get that engagement, but where do you draw the line?
Okay, so the question was about trends and where you draw the line between like too trendy, trying to get engagement. Honestly, I think it depends on your brand, your organization, and kind of the tone of your communication as a whole. If you have the ability, let's say you work with like youth programs, I think it's a lot easier to kind of use trends to your advantage. That goes back to knowing who your audience is. So if you have an audience base that is going to have no idea the latest in those trends, I would probably advise against it, and that's an immediate line draw for me. But I think you have to have a healthy balance, right? For every fun and engaging and trendy video, I would have something informational as well. After all, you are a credible organization, right? Not that fun can't be credible, but don't forget to kind of keep it basic and kind of true to your organization. So I think it just depends on audience and having a good balance of the types of posts that you're producing. Yeah.
So speaking on trends, what would you think if you're going to do one, like follow one, what would be your time frame before it's too old?
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some that I'm like, okay, I've seen that done too many times.
Yes, that's a good question. So if you didn't hear her, how long can you kind of jump on the trend bandwagon before it's not cool anymore? I think I'm not an expert in terms of like the cycle of social media trends. I'm frankly probably the last person to even ask about that. But I think, if you're still seeing it pop up in your feed and like other people are still kind of also trying to mimic it and jump on the train, then I think it's okay to do. But there's also the point of nostalgia, right? I think recently I've seen a lot more throwback content to like Vines back in the day, right? So I think that if you do it effectively and creatively, it doesn't really matter when you're doing the trend. If you're doing it right, your audience is going to engage with it no matter what and find humor in it and entertainment. Other questions? Yes. Oh, yeah. I'll be very honest about hashtags. They've been popular for so long. I use hashtags to track my content, and that's it, very frankly. So I can see where content's going. I think they can be useful to kind of generate engagement, but also our social media platforms have so many other abilities to engage with audience members and viewers that I think hashtags is like bottom of the totem pole. So use it creatively because it is visible, but also use it as your tracking tool and find even more unique ways to engage with your audience. Yes.
So I know we often spend a lot of time talking to producers and farmers, but consumer side is also really important in knowing your audience. Are there any tools or places you are telling your students to go to learn more about that particular audience?
Yes. So we're talking so lots of us work with producers, farmers, but then where do we go to learn more about our consumer audience? And where am I telling students to go look for that, right? Very broad level. My students use a lot of Pew Research Center to just get very general statistics and insights in terms of how certain age demographics, regions, especially in a rural versus urban, suburban environment, where they're going for media consumption. I also think there's a really great uptick in research from the AgCom perspective in academia about this and where people are going for their content. Very frankly, I would just start building out buyer personas. In our campaigns class, most recently we had a past AgCom graduate. She's worked in agencies for years. She works in Northwest Arkansas area. I won't say the business because I don't think she works there anymore, but she's changed jobs. But one thing that she shared in her buyer personas is they get very specific. So they name them, right? They create someone and they think, okay, this is Jennifer and she shops here for groceries, and this is the time of day that she does that and the day of the week, and she's got this many kids, and this is her job, and this is how she spends her time. And we know that based on her age and location, she's most likely to use XYZ social media platforms. These are her buying preferences, and that research is accessible to you. You just have to dig for it, develop those personas, and then you have a better understanding of how you actually need to reach them. Did that answer your question in a roundabout way? Okay. Other questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, thank you guys. Email me, find me on social media. Happy to talk with you after if there has any additional questions or if you like any of the resources I talked about. And thank you for coming in today.